Matt Miguez has plenty on his mind, and he's ready to share it with the world. It's time to hear the Miguez Mindset.
Welcome into the Miguez Mindset here on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Lake Charles. My name is Matt Miguez. We've got a lot to get to this week. Bowl games get started for college football. The Louisiana Raging Cajuns taking a short drive down I-10 today to New Orleans to prepare for the New Orleans Bowl on Saturday, where they will play Jacksonville State. We'll have a preview of that game coming up later on in the week. But first, I want to recap the weekend. The New Orleans Saints picked up a much-needed win. I'm not going to say it was a good win because it was a win that if you didn't have, you would have serious problems over the Carolina Panthers. So we'll talk about that. We'll also look at Jayden Daniels capturing just the third Heisman Trophy for LSU. We'll break down how it happened, look at the votes, and look at what it means for his potential future. A lot of mock drafts now have him sitting in the top 10. So let's start there. Jayden Daniels capturing the Heisman Trophy on Saturday night over Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., and Marvin Harrison Jr. Jayden Daniels won this by nearly 300 points. He finished with 2,029 total points. So the way it works is a first place vote is worth 3 points, second place vote is worth 2 points, and a third place vote is worth 1 point. So when you add those all up, 2,029 points. Next closest was Michael Penix Jr., who finished in second with 1,701. So Jayden Daniels won this by nearly 300 points, and over 200 first place votes was the gap. So pretty sizable victory for the LSU quarterback. Again, just the third player in LSU history to win the Heisman Trophy, following in the footsteps of Billy Cannon back in 1958 or 1959, and Jayden Daniels in 2019. Joe Burrow in 2019. So a really historic moment for LSU and for Jayden Daniels. You look at his season, 3,800 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, over 1,000 rushing yards, 10 more touchdowns. He was the fastest player this year to have 50 touchdowns responsible for. His first player in FBS history to rush for 200 and pass for 350 in the same game. And he's only the second SEC player ever to have 3,500 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards in the same season, joining Johnny Manziel, who also won a Heisman Trophy in that season. So what does this all mean for Jayden Daniels' future? Well, now that he's the Heisman Trophy winner, his draft stock's going to rise, and it already has. You look at the mock drafts, almost every mock draft coming out over the last couple of days has Jayden Daniels in the top 10. Some of them even have him in the top 5. I've seen a couple even today, Jayden Daniels going fourth to teams like the Washington Commanders or the New York Giants. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I know a lot of people want the Saints to get him, myself included. If the Saints could pull that off, that would be exponential for their future. But here's the thing. The Saints don't draft quarterbacks in the first round. They haven't done so since Archie Manning 60 years ago. It hasn't really been that long, but you get my point. The Saints, under their current makeup, will not draft a quarterback in the first round. I will come on here and eat crow if I'm lying, because it just doesn't happen. You draft defensive linemen, you draft offensive linemen, or you draft linebackers. The Saints don't take skill players in the first round. Chris Olave was an anomaly, and it's worked out. I mean, Chris Olave has been fantastic for you. He's probably your franchise centerpiece at wide receiver now. So I mean, that's an anomaly, right? I mean, Michael Thomas was even a second round pick. So you're going to take either an offensive or defensive lineman or a defensive back or something like that in the first round, because that's just what the Saints do. They also don't take players from LSU very often. So we'll see how that plays out. But look, in terms of Jayden Daniels, what a spectacular season. He was 100% deserving of this award. He was the best player in college football, and I don't know that it was particularly close this season. So congrats to Jayden Daniels, congrats to LSU. They now prepare for the ReliaQuest Bowl, where they will face Luke Fickell and 7-5 Wisconsin. Shades of last year against Purdue? Maybe. Let's move on to the New Orleans Saints, a 28-6 win over the Carolina Panthers. Look, this game did not start pretty at all. It was 0-0 at the end of the first quarter. Carolina put some points on the board in the second quarter, but it was the 14 points scored by the Saints in this second quarter that kind of put things in motion. Look, you start 5 seconds into the second quarter with a 9-yard touchdown from Alvin Kamara. The Panthers answer with their 47-yard field goal just 5 minutes later. And then almost 5 minutes after that, Carolina's going to punt it away, and Nafai Sewell gets to the punter untouched, blocks the punt. DeMarco Jackson scoops it up, runs it in, makes it a 14-3 game. Carolina would get a field goal in the third quarter to make it 14-6, and then the Saints would put the exclamation point in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, with 2 touchdowns in 90 seconds to make it 28-6, and that would be how the game ends. But look, I have to say this: you win 28-6, which is great. It wasn't pretty. Derek Carr barely threw for 100 yards. And I know that people say, oh, well, that was the game plan. They wanted him to just manage the game and not do anything crazy. I get that. And I'm fine with that. You got to throw for more than 120 yards, though. I mean, that's awful. He was 18 of 26 for 119 yards, 2 touchdowns with 1 interception. Alvin Kamara, 12 carries for 56 yards and 1 touchdown. Look, Bryce Young had more passing yards than you, completing 33% of his passes. That's not great. That's not a great look. Chuba Hubbard, 83 yards on 23 carries. The Saints have really struggled to stop good running backs this year, and it happened again. We'll see what happens this Sunday when Saquon Barkley and Tommy DeVito come to town with the New York Giants. Then Adam Thielen, 5 catches for 74 yards. A.T. Perry was the Saints' leading receiver with that 1 big catch for 44 yards. With the win, the Saints are now 6-7. Carolina falls to 1-12. But look, here's the other interesting caveat with the Saints. The Saints are now in a 3-way tie for first place with Atlanta and Tampa Bay. All 3 teams are sitting at 6-7 on the season. But Atlanta and Tampa both have tiebreakers over New Orleans. So if you stay tied, the Saints still finish 3rd, which won't do you any good. So, you look at the final 4 games. You've got the Giants this weekend. It's a winnable game, but I'm going to lean towards the Giants in this one. The Saints have struggled to stop good running backs. Saquon Barkley is one of the best. They've struggled to stop quarterbacks that can run. Tommy DeVito is very good at doing so. So, I'm going to say that this one's a loss. Then you go to Los Angeles on short rest. I don't like that either. I think the Saints will lose that one as well, and that'll put them at 6-9 on the season. I think you bounce back with a win over Tampa to make yourself 7-9, and then it's going to all come down to the finale against Atlanta. Look, this division is so bad. I could see a world where the Saints win this division at 8-9, but you have to go 8-9. Anything less than that will not get the job done in the NFC South. If you look at Tampa Bay's remaining schedule for the 2023 season, they go at the Packers. I think the Packers win that game. They play the Jags. I think the Jags beat them. You got the game against the Saints, and then they play Carolina. So they're going to pick up that win against Carolina. The other 2, I think they dropped their next 2. So that Saints game is going to be key on New Year's Eve, whether or not the Saints can hold on and win the division at 8-9. And then you look at the Falcons' final 4 games. They're also sitting at 6-7 like we talked about. 4-3 at home inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Their final 4 at the Panthers, that's a win. Home against the Colts, I think the Colts beat Atlanta. They go to Chicago. You see, that one's going to be interesting. I think the way Chicago is playing right now, the Falcons could be on upset alert there. I think Atlanta would be favored in that one, but I think Chicago could win that game, and then you come back to play the Falcons will go to New Orleans to play the Saints in the regular season finale. Again, that game is going to decide a lot for several teams. It could very well decide who ends up winning the NFC South. So the Saints need to do what they can. If they can beat the Giants this weekend, that would make things a lot easier for them, because the way the Rams are clicking on offense right now, and you're going to them on short rest, It's hard for me to see a world where the Saints win that game. If they do, great. We're jumping for joy. But I just don't see a world where that's remotely even possible. So take care of business this Sunday against Tommy DeVito, a.k.a. Tommy Cutlets, and the New York Giants, and then just kind of go from there, right? And then, going back to closing remarks on LSU, look, this was a big moment for Jayden Daniels. This was a big moment for Brian Kelly and LSU, who now tried to go for 10 wins for the second straight year in their bowl game on New Year's Day against Wisconsin. Recruiting news there, interested to see what Bryce Underwood's going to decide to do, the 2025 top quarterback in the country. Look, he's been connected to Michigan because that's where he's from, but Michigan's already shored up their quarterback room. They might still take Bryce Underwood, but I don't know that they really need to. So Bryce Underwood's been in constant contact with LSU. He's made multiple visits down to Baton Rouge. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. So keep an eye out on that over the next couple days with early signing day right around the corner. Look, I know it's the 2024 class, but you could start to see some pieces start to turn with that 2025 class even now. So keep an eye out for that. Also, the Louisiana Raging Cajuns, again, heading to New Orleans today for the New Orleans Bowl. We'll have a preview of that a little later on in the week. The Jacksonville State Gamecocks, 8-4, 6-2 in Conference USA. They've got a high-powered offense under former Michigan offensive coordinator Rich Rodriguez. So that will be a fun matchup inside of the Caesar Superdome on Saturday afternoon. Make sure you follow us on social media at ESPN_SWLA. Subscribe to our YouTube channel here at ESPN Southwest Louisiana, and share it with your friends. Let's get this content out to as many people as possible. We appreciate you guys doing everything that you can to help us grow this channel. We'll be back later this week with that preview of Louisiana Jacksonville State right here on the Miguez Mindset on ESPN 103.7 Lafayette and 104.1 Charles.